This story starts when I turned 14 and had my first sail on a VS, a blokes Senior. It belonged to a high school friend, Steve. We would go sailing every available day, come rain, hail or shine, along with another friend, Tony. Steve can recall sometime in the depths of winter, in 15 to 20 knots, the three of us hard on the wind, feet in the tow straps, all hanging out to windward, and singing at the tops of our voices the Beatles song, When I'm 64. Not a care in the world, totally enjoying our teenage years to the full. The Mirror Dinghy, one of many dinghies we sailed as teenagers. Who hasn't sailed in one of these? They were designed as a lightweight car topper by Jack Holt and Barry Bucknell in 1962. They were sold in kit form and had a gunter rig and a pram bow. Over 70,000 were built. The GP14 is a good family yacht and was another one of Jack Holt's designs, with 14,000 being built. GP standing for general purpose. If there was no wind, you could put an outboard on the back and go fishing. The Flying Dutchman, designed in the Netherlands in 1951. It was a great thrill to be out on the trapeze or experience the boat planing downwind in a stiff breeze with the centreboard humming in its centre case. Gary owned one, and after a great day sailing on the bay, we discussed the possibilities of building a cruising yacht. A great inspiration to us all as teenagers was a New Zealander by the name of John Ray, who had written a book titled South Sea Vagabonds. He had built a yacht in his parents' front garden and sailed the Pacific in the 1930s. On the Christmas of 1972, a yacht was born at Brooklands Farm in the parish of Tarrawarra and named after her birthplace. Brooklands Farm is halfway between Yarraglen and Healesville. The yacht, a Koonya class, was designed by the great Australian naval architect Alan Payne, who is famous for designing both Gretel and Gretel II. In 1970, Gretel II challenged Intrepid in the America's Cup, winning the second race by 1 minute 7 seconds, but was disqualified, but won the fourth race outright by 1 minute 2 seconds. Bill Fesk, who was the navigator on Gretel II, commissioned Alan Payne to design the first Koonya back in 1958. The Tarrawarra gang, from left to right, myself, Kim Proud, Gary, Tony and Brian, all with the special skills that contributed to the build. Myself a chippy, Gary with his boiler making and welding skills, and Tony's field was electronics and Brian was our problem solver. The 14th of May 1977 was one of the greatest days of our lives, as 4.5 years of hard work finally came to fruition, as Tarawara got closer to her natural element. I don't think I'll ever tire of watching this film footage, as it takes me back to that very day. I think I should remind everyone that in the 70s you couldn't just turn on a GPS and sail around the world. We've come a long way in the technical world. In the 70s, car radios and heaters were optional extras. If you needed to make a phone call, you'd need to find a phone box and have the right coinage. There were no faxes, DVD or CD players. During the build, we all completed a course in celestial navigation at RMIT. And the only navigational tools we had were a Zeiss Freiburger sextant, a binnacle mounted compass, a depth sounder, a trailing walker log, and a radio direction finder, and possibly one of the earliest crystal quartz watches that we used as a timepiece. But we still managed to find our way around the Pacific, sometimes finding islands only as big as football fields, which gave us great satisfaction. There goes Brian checking the water level. Looks like we fluked high tide. The time is 10 AM at St Kilda Marina. Tarawara is 38 foot long, with a beam just over 11 feet and a draft of 5 foot 9. Her mast stood around 40 feet off the cabin top. 3 tonnes of lead ballast was on the back of the low loader in the form of lead ingots, which we loaded into the keel after launching in order to trim the boat. Gary's mother, seen here in the red dress, made a short speech and christened the boat Tarawara by smashing a bottle of champagne on the bow. Wow, the sight we'd all been waiting for, which words at the time would not have described our emotional feelings. After the launching, we finally set sail with a crew of 6. Tony taking the photo, myself, Tony's brother Mark, Ron, Brian and Steve. Ron and Brian would leave the boat at Wilson's Promontory. We sailed up the east coast to Sydney where we contacted Alan Payne, who took the helm for a 2-hour sail in Sydney Harbour. Before he left, he made the following entry in our visitors book. February the 14th, 1978 in Sydney. The day I saw one of my designs completed with excellent, thoughtful workmanship to my great pleasure. Congratulations, and I hope and believe Tarawara will behave herself properly. Signed, Alan Payne. We left the Australian coast at Coffs Harbour, bound for Lord Howe Island. This was the passage everyone dreams of. With our number 2 Genoa and one reef in the main, we were able to hold the starboard reach the whole way with no sail changes, arriving 57 hours later, a distance of 360 nautical miles. Mark would leave the boat here and leave Tony, Steve and myself to go on, the same 3 that had sailed in the VS several years earlier. Our next passage from Lord Howe to Fiji, a distance of 1300 nautical miles, was a tough initiation into blue water sailing. We hand steered hard on the wind for 11 days, with only the 6th day where we saw some sunshine and were able to get a good fix, but relied mainly on dead reckoning. Being on a starboard tack, we were experiencing leeway to the west, leaving our chosen landfall of Suva impossible to obtain. We finally made landfall in Lautoka. Exhausted but in good spirits, it was great to be able to have 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Fiji, the sweet smell of frangipanis and crystal clear waters. It's not that long ago that Fijians practiced cannibalism. White man was referred to as long pork and could be boiled, roasted or pickled. It was in Fiji we fitted airy self-steering gear to the boat, which saw us well rested and relaxed for ocean passages, truly enjoying the cruising lifestyle. Port Vile of Vanuatu. We entered a tall ships race and received a trophy for coming second. We buddy boated to the Loyalty Islands and found a cathedral in a limestone cave in Uvea Atoll. Then waited in New Caledonia for favourable weather to do our 1,000-mile passage to New Zealand. In New Zealand, we all obtained work, with myself working on a replica of the famous Bounty for a new Mutiny on the Bounty film. We were able to attend the launching of the Bounty before we departed New Zealand in April 1979. Steve had made other plans, leaving Tony and I to go on. Our destination was the Gilbert Islands for their independence celebrations via Tonga, Wallis Island and Tuvalu. The Gilbert Islands have an interesting history. Tarawa is the capital of the Gilberts and is 3 miles long and half a mile in width, and was the scene of one of the bloodiest battles in 1943. 4,700 Japanese and 3,000 Marines lost their lives in a 72-hour battle for the Marines to gain control of a vital airfield. From the Gilberts, we headed back south to Nanumea in Tuvalu, where we had the most amazing times of our lives. We were treated like royalty, and the day before we left, they declared a public holiday and put on a feast in our honour. The next morning, all the people gathered to see us off. As all the children's singing faded behind us, we decided this was the greatest moment in our sailing experience, and their music stayed with us as we made our way back to Australia, and it still renews those memories if I hear the music today. With the Polynesian singing still fresh in our minds, we headed back to Fiji, where Tony had decided to fly home, leaving myself to either do a solo passage or find a crew. I chose the latter. Ron, my brother-in-law, was summoned, as was Bob, an old workmate in the building trade, and Mary from Hawaii, who hoped to join a circus in Sydney. As you may have noticed, Gary and Brian hadn't pursued the dream we all started with, but were still able to do a few short passages with us. Ron would fly home when we arrived at Lord Howe, and Mary left us at Eden, catching a bus to Sydney. Gary and a friend John were able to join us for our short passage to Wilson's prom, leaving Bob and myself to do the final leg home. Looking back, there were some great highs we experienced. Seeing the boat floating beautifully for the first time. The way she sailed through the water perfectly balanced, with only a fingertip on the helm. Our first sight of a stand of coconut palms on a white sandy shoreline, and the unforgettable hospitality we received in Nanumea. The smell of land before you see it. The satisfaction of finding landfalls using a sextant and maths. Old school. Seeing your anchor on a sandy bottom 40 feet below in the moonlight. The large round eye of a dolphin as it rolls on its side and looks up. The gurgling of the water passing the boat as you lay in the leeward bunk. Putting this video together has helped me relive these great times of 45 years ago. As teenagers, we had a dream of perhaps building a yacht one day, but never imagined our dream would come true. If I ever get Alzheimer's, I can watch this video every day like it's the first time. I encourage anyone who has a dream to pursue it. Ignore the naysayers or the what-ifs. You'll be surprised how things fall into place and the people you will meet. Yes, there are risks, but the biggest risk is not doing anything. Make life an adventure and live for the day. If you are still watching and would like a more detailed version of this story, go to Google Play Books and search Tarawara. All the music is supplied by Epidemic Sound. I've been Kim Proud. Thank you for watching.